lights down low and watch all the vampires in silhouette. I run for the hills and try to keep my head. There's still a chance we can make it if you hold on hope, hold on hope. It's what I'm saying, but the words don't come out right. Who's inside my mind? Who's inside my mind? Everything is alright, but I keep seeing ghosts in the daylight. Who's inside my mind? Who's inside my mind? Everything is alright, but I keep seeing ghosts in the daylight. I try not to listen, but I can't turn it off. I'm floating around like a lost astronaut. I try not to listen, but I can't turn it off. I'm coming in hot, baby, ready to go. Who's inside my mind? Who's inside? Everything is alright, but I keep seeing ghosts in the daylight. Who's inside my mind? Who's inside my mind? Everything is alright, but I keep seeing ghosts in the daylight. Who's inside my mind? Who's inside my mind? Everything is alright, but I keep seeing ghosts in the daylight. Who's inside my mind? Who's inside my mind? Who's inside my mind?
What's up, everybody, and welcome to another Monday night Para-Prob podcast. And speaking of probs, I just want to start by saying that Facebook, I don't know what is going on, but there is a bunch of, it looks like, issues going on. I'm not sure what it is. Excuse me. So what I'm going to do, and of course, YouTube's all right, I am putting the channel right there. There's a channel in your chat for the YouTube side. For some reason, and I noticed this on my video earlier, I can't see any of the Facebook comments. I don't know what is going on. It's only on YouTube. So if you guys can, just go ahead and click that link and head on over to YouTube. I don't know what is going on. But anyway, tonight I'm actually joined by a really special co-host. This man is not only a paranormal investigator, but he's also an author. But we're going to be talking about something very important, honestly, in our field, and that is locations. So, ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome my co-host for this evening, the one and only Keith Evans. Keith, how are you doing tonight, brother?
Hey, I'm doing good. How about you?
Not bad. I wish Facebook would, work with me.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody is familiar with StreamYard, but this is all, by the way, a Facebook issue. This isn't a StreamYard issue. So, Brian, if you're watching, Brian Laverty, if you're watching, not StreamYard. It's a Facebook problem. So I always give Brian crap. So, well, welcome, brother. Welcome.
Thanks for
So,
having me.
hey, no problem. How are you doing tonight? Are you like, how's everything going for you?
Good. No problems.
Good. So, why don't you give the audience a little bit of introduction of who you are and what got you in the field and all that good stuff?
Well, I'm a paranormal investigator. As a child, I could actually feel dead people's happiness in whatever they enjoyed. And I had a relative who had an old house, and it had this beautiful wooden grain wainscoting, which is like paneling that went maybe up to maybe the chair height, didn't go all the way up to the ceiling. And I just thought that was the nicest, prettiest wall I'd ever seen. And I made over it. Every time I saw it, I talked about it. And I was actually feeling the past relatives that had owned and built that house. I was feeling the pride that they actually had in that wainscoting. And that's how I first discovered that I was a empath, and I was, different than everyone else in my family. And they didn't care much for me, having the empathic abilities. In fact, they felt that I was playing, I would grow out of it, or they thought I was right out crazy. So I just decided I would keep it to myself. And everyone says, well, why aren't you in a team? Well, in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, where I lived at in Maryland, it was very conservative, and nobody wanted to even talk about paranormal. They would shut you down in a heartbeat. So I either had to do paranormal research alone or not do it at all. So I never had the fear that most people have, and I've never ran across anything that I knowingly felt threatened by, or that I could say was evil or demonic. I'm not saying that it's not out there. It's just not that common.
Of course. So wait, so you were in Maryland? Whereabouts in Maryland?
Howard, Carroll County, that area.
Okay, I'm actually in central Pennsylvania, so not too far. Where are you? Is that where you're at now, or?
No, I live in Florida.
Oh, Florida. Well, you didn't obviously you're all right, but you survived
Yes,
the hurricane.
I'm up on the Panhandle, so we missed the hurricane.
That's good. I'm glad to hear it. I'm really glad to hear it. So,
Me too.
So, like we always do, and Keith, like we said, we're going to say hello to our wonderful audience. Now, again, I don't know what is going on with Facebook. So, guys, if you're watching, please head over to the YouTube channel. YouTube seems to be working just fine. It's just something with Facebook. I'm almost curious if maybe it's this whole meta thing that they're changing over. I don't know. But, of course, my brother, David Hale. What is up, David? How are you tonight, brother? David always joins us, Keith. He's always early. Well, except I guess he was late for the other one, but that's all right, David. I'll forgive you. Grandmaster, how are you doing tonight? Paranormal podcast. I understand. I get it. Welcome. So let's see. Can we talk about UFOs? I'm an insider kid from the DC with 700 types of UFO tech and alien bodies. Wow. Well, actually, tonight we're going to be discussing locations. Each show is about a certain topic. So extraterrestrials, cryptids, and all that stuff, that'll be coming up in another show very, very soon, actually. But my wife and Squeakers, my co-host for the Para-Prob podcast, are doing a show right now called Creepy Cryptids. So you're welcome to go over there or hang out here with us. And you're welcome anywhere you like. Let's see who else. All right. So Keith, one of the things, and I've been discussing a couple things on this show. It started off with an introduction, then we got into paranormal investigating a little bit. We got into equipment. Tonight's is locations. Now, let me ask you, how important is that topic in the paranormal field?
I think it's very important, and it depends on the person. I've never worked with a team. I've always worked alone, so
Mm,
I've been very happy with my locations because I'm the only one that chooses. But I will say one thing: a lot of the locations will not give you permission. If it's a house or a property that you don't own, get permission.
of course.
Now, if it's a public area, I go for it. If nobody's around, I don't do it if someone's who might be offended. But if
Of
it's a
course.
public area, then you're just make sure you're by yourself and nobody's around.
Now that is actually something that a lot of teams I don't want to get in trouble with, but they kind of skirt they kind of skirt with that rule. And I'm glad you said public locations. Now, I don't know about you, but me personally, when I go to a location or if there's a location that I like, if it is public, like a cemetery, for example, I check out the hours. I check out the hours listed and investigate either during those times, or I investigate, or I try to get permission for after. How do you do that? How do you work around that? Because I know a lot of us like to investigate at night. Like, have you ever ran into that where a location closes at say sunset and you want to get it after?
No, most graveyards are closed 5 p.m. in certain locations and some at sunset. But I like to do my paranormal research during the day. I
Mm,
find that you're going to get better video footage. At night, a ghost could be doing a lot and you wouldn't even see it. I watch a lot of different videos of people doing it at night, and all I'm seeing is the black. And when
mm.
I do paranormal research at night, which some fans requested, that's all I see. A ghost could be doing something very subtle and I wouldn't see it. And I find if ghosts move something, it's always a very subtle movement because most ghosts and spirits only have so much energy. If
Correct.
they move an ashtray, they're going to swivel it.
Okay.
So, and you would miss that swivel. So, whenever you're doing paranormal research, definitely take a look at all the items around you and pay attention if they move a little bit. And you can only see it if you're in a well lit area.
Okay. Now, I know some people, and myself included, would love to get into a lot of these, let's call them popular or historical locations. Um, what kind of places have you been to? Like, have you ever been to like any like high end or not high end, but well known locations? And if so, how did you get into them?
Well, I, I've been to well known locations, but I haven't completed paranormal research there. Mm, for instance, I'm trying to think of the old fort there in St. Augustine, Casa del something. I'm
I
horrible with names.
same, absolutely same.
But that fort is owned by the state park, and they're not going to give anyone permission. I think I asked years ago, and they flatly just said no. So, and of course, they'll let a TV program, but a TV program is probably giving them bucks for the usage, and I don't have that much money to give them that amount of money for me using it,
Mhm.
and but it's almost like a public area around the old fort. I think it goes back from the 1600s. So if you're out along the park, you can just do paranormal research because it's actually a park around it. And I've got some pretty good, paranormal activity. There's a seawall in front of the old fort between the bay and the fort. So that seawall that runs along there is an excellent place because if you're not getting intelligent ghosts and spirits, you're getting the residual energy from that old seawall.
Mhm. Now, let me ask you, in your time in the field, we all know that there's residual, obviously, and then there's intelligent style hauntings. What do you feel like with locations? The feeling's different. Like if you can walk in and there's a lot of, let's just say, intelligent spirits there, high energy. Do you think there is a difference between the energy with residual and intelligent at these locations?
Well, if it's intelligent, it's going to respond to your questions in
Of
a
course.
timely manner. If it's, residual, it's just something that's being given off like someone playing a record.
Hmm.
You can ask all the questions you want, and, the record maybe every once in a while might say something that would respond to a correct answer to your question. But as far as being able to feel a difference in the energy, as an empath, my empathic abilities aren't that strong. If I go any place, I have to spend, several days there or several visits there to be able to pick up some type of strong emotion. And it usually has to be a person that had lived there extensively, like say a Victorian home where one member of the family lived there for 50 years. And then I can pick up their strong emotions after maybe, several 1 hour long paranormal sessions over a period of time. But not every place do I pick up anything.
Been
So
there.
I can't rely on my empathic abilities.
So then let me ask you, what, like, I know there's a lot of teams out there who are just now starting out, especially this time of year. With being the beginning of October, everyone has paranormal on their mind. Everyone's thinking paranormal. Um, what are your suggestions to some of these teams that say, well, I'm in the middle of nowhere or I don't have any haunted locations? What kind of things should they be looking for? Like, is there any advice for them?
I can pick up, paranormal activity in a woods. A lot of times, ghosts and spirits stay away from people. And, 200 years ago, most people pretty much lived down in the woods.
Yep.
So I would imagine if I had lived 200 years ago, I'd feel more comfortable in a woods than in a crowded city. So I think you can go any place and, say alongside of the road in the public right of way, within a woods and get out of your car and ask questions. You know,
What about actually going for drives? Like I know for me, where I'm at in Central PA, the paranormal is taboo. You can't just wander around, otherwise you'll have cops checking you out, see what's going on, or kicking
right.
you out of places. But one thing I like to do, especially now, once the weather starts getting a little chillier, a little more uncooperative, I'll just say, I like to go for a drive. And I'll take some of my EMF with me. I'll take a recorder with me. How do you feel about doing that? Just going for a drive and just, pulling over downtown somewhere or pulling into or near a park?
I've seen other paranormal researchers do that, but I have never actually done that. If anything, I might ride around to look at Victorian homes that I would want to approach to ask the owners if I could complete paranormal research there. And I usually try to get a written release so I could use it to advertise on social media or radio or TV or maybe even write a book. But I usually just will get out and walk down the street. And I remember one time I was walking down the street. This was back in 2020. And I had my Obelisk 5 on. And there was a very attractive young lady coming towards me. I was tired. It was like 95 degrees, and I'd been out walking for about an hour. So I was going to head back to the motel and rest and get in the AC. And I thought, well, that young lady, she's very attractive. She was wearing a lacy type white, dress. And I thought, after she goes by, I need to check that out. I was thinking to myself, but I thought, no, I'm tired. Get back to the motel. And as she approached, she was with her boyfriend, and I heard sound like a tall guy up above me on my left side say, "Check her out," really loud. And I looked down at my Obelisk 5 and it said check out. Didn't say her, just check out. And I turned around and there was nobody behind me. And she was upset with me, and he was too. He had his kind of fist clenched like this. And I said, I didn't say anything. It's my Obelisk 5. And I showed him my Obelisk 5. And they just kept on going. But the Obelisk 5 can get you in trouble. And it sometimes, when the ghosts of spirits choose words, it's so low that I can't hear it unless I'm looking at it, because my hearing is not that good. But it sure said it loud enough. And it surely did not sound like a ghost or a spirit. It was almost like a disembodied voice. I thought, how did that man get that close to me? Because it sounded like someone like maybe a foot taller than me say, check her out. As if to say, Keith, look. And, and then, of course, I look at my Obelisk 5, and it didn't say check her out on the Obelisk 5. It just said check out.
Oh, wow.
It left her out of it. And, I just told him, hey, I didn't say anything as my Obelisk 5. Of course, I don't think they believed me. But that was probably one of the most scariest situations, I was in, because so the Obelisk 5 can get you in trouble that way. So you have to be careful if you're out in the public area. And just walking along the streets of St. Augustine, the Obelisk 5 will just be bouncing off the walls as far as, I don't know if it's residual energy. It could have been a combination of that, or it could have been intelligent ghosts of spirits that it's just coming through. I wasn't really asking any questions at the time, so I can't say whether I was picking up residual energy or was, just, if there's a ghost of spirit in the area and they're talking amongst themselves, it's probably going to come through on the Obelisk 5B,
More than likely. So real quick, everybody, again, we are live on, apparently we're live on Facebook. I can't see anybody besides whoever's watching from the Para-Prob podcast. That seems to be the only one that's working right now. So if you are on Facebook, you are seeing this. I am not seeing you. So I'm going to put in the chat the YouTube channel. So if you guys could just click that. If you don't know where it's at, it's just Para-Prob podcast on YouTube. You know us, you know the faces. Join us there so I can see you and see your comments. I don't know what is going on with Facebook, but again, Brian John Laverty, if you're listening, it's not StreamYard. So there is the link right there, everybody. And again, tonight we're talking with Keith Evans. He is my co-host for this evening, and we're discussing locations for paranormal investigating. And actually, Keith, you said something that I think a lot of teams forget about, and that's documentation. When we have an investigation, well, at least when I ran my teams, we had release forms, we had this and that. Now, let me a little tangent. Grandmaster, we all will eventually. And by all means, keep going, because I can keep blocking as much as I want. I don't care. Your drama, you're being stupid and childish. So cool. You're not ruining my show. Anyway,
does anyone have any questions for us? I see. Let me see. There's
we've got 6 people.
David and Vicky.
David,
no one has
Vicky,
any questions
David,
about
Vicky,
locations?
who else? Nerdwitch is in here. But I did want to ask you about your documentation. Now, you said about release forms and stuff like that. For you, how important is it, and what kind of documentation do you have for these locations?
Well, I try to get a consent agreement form signed by the owner. Sometimes they won't sign it. They'll give me verbal permission. And in most cases, they say, just don't say where it's at. And you can use it any way you want. Just don't say where it's at. And don't show anything that would give away the location. So if that happens, that's what I have to go with. But the release form, mainly it's a consent agreement form. And I just request that they allow me to do paranormal research. I'll state that I'll do it whenever the owner or the property manager will allow it. Say if it's a bed or breakfast, I'll do it, after people check out and before they check in. I'm not going to, put anyone out. And a lot of times people at bed and breakfasts might be frightened if someone's doing paranormal research, and they might say, I don't want to stay here if there's ghosts here, So I try to keep it down low so nobody knows what I'm doing if there are people there. And I try to do it when nobody is there. And I also try to get permission. I let the owner know that I use thermal imaging. I use the Obelisk 5B. I use a Melmeter. I take still photos, and I also do videotaping. And I get their permission to use it. And pretty much any electronic format that's out there, say for a future TV program, a future movie, a future book, any type of social media or for advertising on radio or TV. And, most people, if they're open to allow you doing paranormal research, they'll just sign it. Sometimes I get signatures, and then the person, if they sell the place, then I'd have to start all over. So it kind of makes it rough that way. If I haven't written a book about the place, then of course I'd have to get the new owner's permission because they own it now. So you have to be mindful of that, because if it's a real place in its own, like a bed and breakfast or a historical hotel, you need the present owner's permission. Now, once the book is published, then it's already done. So if they sell the place at that point in time, you're okay.
Okay. Now, what about insurance?
No, I don't have any towards the paranormal researching.
Okay, because I know
It's
there's
just
some.
me.
I know some teams do. They put out, they get insurance for obviously locations, liabilities, stuff like that. I was just kind of curious if that was something that you did as well.
I've never really had any events. If you do an event, I've been a member of bottle clubs and coin clubs, and if they have a bottle show or a coin show, then they do need insurance, because if someone gets hurt, they're going to sue, the venue wherever they're having the show, and they're going to try to sue the coin or bottle club also.
Okay, makes sense. All right, guys. Well, we're about at the halfway point, so we're going to take a quick commercial break. So do not go anywhere, because one thing I want to talk about when we come back, Keith, is actually your book. You talked about it, touched base a little bit about it, but guys, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after these quick commercials.
To this crew, yeah, we like to keep it positive, you know how we do. Big up to this crew. From day one till it's done, do or die, me and you. Big up to this crew. Yeah, we like to keep it positive, you know how we do. Big up to this crew. Got props non-stop and mad love for you. Rising up like the moon, elevating the mood, uplifting attitudes, cause that's what we choose to do. And I don't know about you, but there's enough negativity going around with plenty room to improve. Yeah, sometimes we collide with stress and negativity. We always let it slide. It's an elevated vibe, so fly. We touch the sky every time we ride. Big up to this crew. Yeah, we like to keep it positive. You know how we do. Big up to this crew. From day one till it's done, do or die, me and you. Big up to this crew. Yeah, we like to keep it positive. You know how we do. Big up to this crew. Got props non-stop and mad love for you. Now roll back time. Tell me what you find. You're gonna see the same sucker MCs on the sidelines. In the fourth quarter when it's do or die time. That's when this crew is inclined to go prime time. From day one straight till it's done. But you all know full well that we only just begun. Yeah. We stick together, one for all for one. When it gets heavy, no, we don't duck and run. Crazy thinking about the places that we've been. Y'all, I could tell you stories that'll make your head spin. But like I said, straight, thick, or
Welcome back, everybody. So before we continue on, I just want to give a couple of really quick shout outs. Obviously, first and foremost to Para-Post, Brian John Laverty, Para-Post and Para-Post Network Central for allowing us to stream, even though for some reason it's not showing tonight. I don't know what's going on. But of course, Brian has supported a lot of people in this field, and we love him for it. And Para-Post is phenomenal. I absolutely love it. If you guys haven't already, head on over to parapost.net, sign up today for free, or you can go to your Android or iPhone store on your apps, sign up there as well, completely free. And of course, I want to say thank you to our new Paralinks family. We are supposed to be streaming live on Paralinks 1 right now, but again, Facebook's having issues. I don't know what their deal is. But Steven and all of them have been so warm and welcoming to all of us, and I want to give them a special shout out too, because they're awesome, awesome people. And of course, our P3 family, love those guys, excited for the Global Ghost Hunt. And of course, my sponsor and the Paracrew sponsor, Maglite. I don't know about you, Keith, but I've been using Maglite for years. I love Maglite. I love their products. They're very durable, very affordable, and perfect for what we do at night. And guys, if you haven't, go check out Maglite today, maglite.com. And I have it from a very reliable source that there are some specials going on right now for Maglite. So go today, check them out, and order today. Because let's be honest, most of us investigate in the evening or at night. Kind of need a Maglite. So, Keith, before the break, we kind of touched on your book. You want to what is it about?
Well, it's about the Hayes House in Apalachicola, Florida.
Okay.
And the house mainly had two long-term families that lived at the Hayes House. The Buck family built it in 1908 and moved out shortly after Jeff Buck passed away in 1921.
Okay.
After that, it was pretty much a boarding home for the bank. The bank more or less took it back, and to make money, I have a sore throat.
Oh, no worries, Keith. Take your time.
But anyway, the bank took it back and utilized it to try to make money by renting out the boarders. And that happened until the Hayes family bought it. And they purchased the Hayes house at the beginning of World War II.
What's up, Aaron?
In 1942. So I had actually did paranormal research in other parts of Apalachicola where the Buck family and the Hayes family had been employed. And I had received good paranormal research there or activity. So I thought, well, there's good paranormal activity where these two families worked. There's got to be good paranormal activity where these two families lived. The only problem, the owner lived in Atlanta, and I had a hard time finding her to ask permission. But when I did find her, she smiled, so I knew it was yes. And she gave me written permission. So it was interesting. It's one of the few places that I found so many, at least 6, 7, 8 ghosts or spirits between the two families that really care about the house and want to keep it original and keep it safe and for future generations. And I think they enjoy coming back and forth from heaven or the afterlife and pop it in to see how the house is doing. Now, after I wrote the book, it was purchased by another owner, and then there was a lot of changes made, especially to the second floor.
Okay.
So I don't know what the paranormal activity might be like now. I've always found that paranormal activity is best and strongest if the house is very original. if there's been a lot of replacement of wood, then it's usually the paranormal activity goes downhill. And I find even at places that I've completed extensive paranormal research, like say at the 1880 Victorian in St. Augustine, Florida, the best paranormal activity is usually in the oldest part of the house, because it seems like the ghosts and spirits like to go to what they remember. It's kind of like me. When I go to the beach, I don't want to stay at a new motel. I want to stay at a motel that was there, 30 or 40 years ago when I was young.
I know the feeling.
The ghosts are the same way. They want to go back and see if there's anything that was left when they were alive. They want to go to that. They might go to other things too, but I think they spend most of their time at the part of the house that they remember when they were alive.
Okay. Now, just out of curiosity, because you actually brought up an interesting point. You said that you find that once there's been any renovation or anything, activity goes down. That's kind of the opposite of what a lot of people think, because there's a lot of theory out there, in which our field basically is. It's nothing but theory. That once you start manipulating the environment, the spirits will actually get stirred up, because you're changing their home. Why do you feel that, changing actually decreases energy?
Well, it could quite possibly increase activity due to the fact that the ghosts are hostile towards them doing it. But once it's been done, and it's been renovated to look like a brand new house on the inside instead of a house built in, say, 1908, like the Hayes house, I think the ghosts and spirits at that point in time will go to the part of the house that has not been renovated so extensively. And for instance, like at the Hayes house, the first floor wasn't as extensively renovated. I was able to see the kitchen. The kitchen now is a bedroom with a bath. So that's totally renovated. The only other two rooms that were open to a common area were the living room and the TV room. And they pretty much look the same.
Okay. Now, so you're saying then not during the renovation, you're talking like maybe months after a renovation has been completed. That's
Right.
where, okay.
The ghosts and spirits probably are complaining the best way that they can. If there's anyone listening or has an Obelisk 5 to, hear them. I remember I wasn't in town when renovations was going on, but I would, wherever I was at, I would like turn on my Obelisk 5 and ask, is there anyone from the Hayes house, listening and how's things going? And at that time, I didn't know that renovations had started, but I found out later on that they had. And I got the words, "It's hell." And I think that was probably Kathleen. She was, her and her husband, Pat, purchased the house in 1942. So I think that was her telling me that it was hell. And of course, I just shut it down because I thought a ghost was angry and cussing, and I just wasn't in the mood. And I really felt bad about that, because I should have listened, because I didn't know that renovations had started. Yeah. And I think that was Kathleen telling me that it's hell because her house is being changed.
So then let me ask you, once you get to a location, we all have our own. I think we in the paranormal field are somewhat superstitious, whether we want to admit it or not. But we all have our own way of approaching a location. What is your approach when you first arrive on site somewhere? Like you're not
once I've obtained permission and all that.
Of course, prior to like an investigation or a walkthrough, what's your first thing you do as soon as you arrive?
Well, I'm probably one of the least superstitious people that I know. I mainly just try to tell the ghosts and spirits who I am, what my intentions are, the equipment I'm going to be using, that to the best of my knowledge, I don't think it'll hurt them, the ghosts and spirits. And I try to let them know that, for instance, at the Hayes house, I said, I want to write a book about the Hayes house. It's a beautiful house. At the time it was like 80, 90% original. And I just told the ghosts and spirits, I just want to write a book about this house. And I'm hoping I can get enough paranormal activity to do it. And it's very rare that you find like 7 or 8 guardian angels that are like looking after a house. They probably were working overtime to keep the renovations down to a minimum, but I think they also know that if a house that big is not made into a commercial success, someone's going to tear it down, and they didn't want that either. But that's what I do. I try to communicate with the ghosts and spirits and let them know what my intentions are. The fact that I'm going to be using, say, if I'm going to be using it for, on Instagram or Facebook or YouTube, tell them I have a YouTube channel. And then I ask them, if you don't want to be a part of it, then, as long as you don't materialize or choose a word from my Obelisk 5, then you're probably not going to be a part of it. So I give them a chance to opt out.
Okay.
And, I try to be friendly and respectful. And by doing that, I hope to get that back. And I think I do, just by the amount of paranormal activity that I receive while I'm doing my paranormal sessions. And the reason why I say paranormal sessions is that I've had ghosts and spirits say, why are you investigating me? I haven't done anything wrong. I've had that. And it just kind of goes to the negativity that our society puts on paranormal. We investigate people who have committed crimes. And, as paranormal investigators, we're there to communicate with the dead and, not charge them with a felony from our investigation. So I try to take words out that would cause me to be uncomfortable. If someone off the street said, hi, I want to investigate you for my TV show, that would probably make me feel a little uncomfortable. But if they come and say, hey, I want to do a interview you for, a TV show that I'm going to put on, whatever TV station, then I'd feel more comfortable. And ghosts and spirits are just people too. And I think the more comfortable do you make them feel and treat the ghost and spirit the way you would want to be treated. And a lot goes the questions that you asked.
Yes.
I've had relatives who have passed away, and I had no idea the extent of how ill or sick they were. Some people just don't feel comfortable sharing things.
Yep.
And a lot of times when we go on paranormal investigations, we're asking some questions that we probably wouldn't want to share. So why do we think the ghost and spirit wouldn't want to share those questions, with an audience anywhere? You might not get an answer because they don't want to share it.
That's actually a really good point. You have a couple good points there, actually. First, that term investigation. You're right. It does actually put it can put a negative spin.
Yeah.
You do think of, like, when you say investigation, most of us think like police activity, looking at crime, stuff like that. So what would you say besides sessions? Like, what would be a good term that we could pick up? Paranormal reporter, paranormal.
Well, if you don't use paranormal session, you can say paranormal communication, because that's what you're doing. You're communicating with the people who have passed away.
Now, I'm just being curious.
Right.
So then what would we call ourselves? Because if you say investigator, that would be part of it. Reporter?
I just say paranormal researcher. I know some people think if you're a researcher, you're just doing it out of a book. But I got my degree in chemistry. And when we do research, we're actually doing it on chemicals or, something tangible.
Yeah.
So I broaden it, and I just consider myself a paranormal researcher, because when I do paranormal sessions, I'm actually doing research. I try to document everything, and I try to save everything so that, say, if you went to the Hayes house and got permission from the present owner, which good luck at that. But if you did, you might say, hey, I read Keith's book and I documented some of the same stuff. So the ghosts and spirits that were talking to him are also talking to me. And that's the reason why I try to document what I document. And when it comes to residual energy, if you can document the date and the time, that residual energy might happen on that date and that time each year. So that means other paranormal investigators can be there to hear it and see it and experience it. Now, I'm not saying that it happens that way, but we won't find out until someone documents it.
Well, that's where good networking comes in. Though I like what Spectre Radio. Now, Spectre Radio, Keith, is actually a new P3 family member. His name's Aaron Hoffman. He said he introduces himself and says he's just here to tell the spirit story. That's actually a good introduction. And if you say it like that, you're here to tell their story. Just like in conjunction with what you said, they may be more apt to come and chat with us.
Right.
Now, me personally, and I've said this before, and I know this isn't, our topic's not investigations, but it does tie in very, very closely with locations. Me personally, I feel like, kind of like you do, they won't interact or don't want to interact with the same old, especially if it's an infamous location like Waverly Hills or, your Trans-Alleghenies, stuff like that. You don't want to go in and go, what's your name? How old are you? Do you know what year it is? It gets repetitive.
Right.
They're probably tired of hearing that. And I know the Whaley House, I've actually sat and chat with Thomas Whaley with an SB7. We all sat down. We had a little conversation with him. And, they do. You're absolutely right. They do pick up on what your intentions are and how you are. And, I've even asked him, hey, Mr. Whaley, what's it like to die? And he said, cold. Okay, bring a sweater. Got it. Okay, and I found that over my 16 years of doing this, that the more personable you are with these spirits, the more you're more likely to get activity, like or evidence. I ask them, especially if it's someone in the early 1900s. What's your favorite sport? What do you like to play? What would you like to do? Like, what's your do you like beer? Are you a beer guy? Are you a wine guy? Are you this? Are you that? What's the weather like to you? Is it day? Is it night? Is it, what year? What year do you think it is? And then you say, well, I actually give them a history lesson. I've sat there. Like, we had a spirit from I think it was 1800s. I said, oh, you missed a lot. And I gave a brief history. I'm like, you missed a couple world wars. You missed this. You missed that. And even in Gettysburg. A lot of the soldiers there, they don't remember that, what happened. So they don't know that the Civil War is done. Some of these residual spirits are actually intelligent, still thinking they're fighting a war. That's their mindset. They don't realize they are very intelligent. They will answer your questions. I've actually had them say, get down. We're being shot. You're being shot. You're being shot. Get down, Yank. No, guys, listen. And we had to explain to them. And yeah, you're absolutely right that you have to be personable, but be yourself, be sincere, and actually believe the questions you are asking, because they will pick up on that. Yeah, treat them as though they are still alive and relevant, and they're not a circus act, as I like to say.
Right. And I find sometimes it's good to ask something that's not so personal, like, do you like baseball? Do you like football? Do you play cards? What's your favorite card game? Something that they might not want to tell you that they passed away with cancer or, something like that. Or so, and I find try to learn as much about the place that you're going to investigate as possible. Say if one family lived there for 30 years and the husband, was, owned a lumber company.
Mhm.
Ask them questions about lumber, like what type of lumber did you, cut down? What did you have in your lumber yard? Just ask questions about what that ghost or spirit might be interested in. Because if you're asking questions about something the ghost or spirit could care less about, they're not going to respond to you. So, and if the gentleman that lived there, was a world champion runner, ask him questions about his days as a runner, something he'd be proud to talk about. So try to learn as much about the people and families that lived at the location where you're doing paranormal research, and then ask them questions about that. Because I find if you hit a topic that ghost or spirit who's there is interested in, they're more apt to talk to you.
Of course. Of course. So I do have one more question for this evening, and this is one that kind of ties into what I'm currently involved in, and that's the global ghost hunt. I'm not sure how familiar you are with global ghost hunt and what we're up to.
I'm
But
not. I've heard about it though, but I don't know anything about it.
well, the short version is we are out to help promote teams and locations. It is not just about the teams, it's about the locations
Right.
themselves and preserving the locations, and
Right.
even putting locations that some people may have never heard of on the map. Like they can be the next Waverly Hills or Trans Allegheny. Because let's be honest, is a lot of history all over the US and all over the world. And a lot of these places have activity, and those spirits deserve to be heard as well.
Yes.
Which actually I wanted to ask you, you kind of touched on how important to you is it to preserve these locations for the next generation, and what can we do as a community to help do that?
Well, for instance, I've been doing extensive paranormal research at the Chestnut Street Cemetery in Apalachicola, Florida.
Mhm.
And a lot of the tombstones have been broken and knocked down. Um, I would say that if you give money to whoever takes care of the graveyard, and that way they could professionally maybe try to um, take the parts of the tombstone and glue them back together in a way that would look professional and be respectful. Because once that old tombstone is broken up and gone, you lost it forever, and it's
Yeah.
a part of history. So I think if you can volunteer to help whoever does restoration of tombstones. I know some people actually clean the years of pollen and bird droppings off of tombstones, and you know. So
Oh,
if there's anyone out there that wants to learn how to do that and get permission to go to their neighborhood, graveyard to clean the tombstones, that's one way of preserving them. Just takes off the organic layer without removing any of the stone or crystal part from the tombstone. So
now
that's one thing I can think of.
well, I know out in San Diego, and here in my hometown now, they have community outreach days. Um, now, I personally believe that if you're a paranormal team, especially one that's just starting out, I think it's a really good idea for these teams to go out to these community days and help clean up the parks, clean up locations and stuff like that. Because not only are you making the location better, but you're also building a reputation and you're building a relationship with your general community. And word of mouth will definitely pass very quickly if they start seeing you out and about with your team helping and doing
Right.
a community outreach, and it shows that you actually care about the locations. So but yeah, anybody have anything for Keith or myself for this evening? Again, it is on locations. Keith, tell us a little bit about where can we find your book? Where can we find what you do and your exploits? Where can we find you?
Well, my book is sold online at just about every online dealer for books, Amazon. Say if you're in Ireland or UK or Canada, they can find my book on like eBay and Amazon. In the US, online at Barnes and Noble, and online is Second and Charles. So just check any place online for
Okay.
my book. It's called The Hayes House Ghost for People 2. And I'm on YouTube. My YouTube channel is called Paranormal Short Sessions by Keith Evans.
All right.
And I'm on Instagram at PetCat2006 and Facebook at Keith Evans.
Awesome. And by the way, I love the name Pet Cat 2000s. I love that Pet Cat. I have 6 cats.
Yeah, I named it after, I couldn't think, I didn't want to say one pet cat's name, so I just said Pet Cat to honor
That's
all of them.
That's fair.
Well,
That's fair.
I was just wondering,
Yeah.
so far, nobody's asked us the question. There's Kara. She just says, hi, guys. There's Vicky. There's David. I was just wondering, encourage them to ask the question. They probably have a question and, take time
Trust
to
me.
type it in.
If they had a question, I know those guys. But I think a lot of the issue right now is whatever's going on with Facebook. I'm
I
not
see.
sure what it is, but normally we're on 8 locations. We're I think 6 on Facebook and 2 on YouTube. Right now I'm down to 3, so I don't know what is going on with that. I will be looking into this right after the show to figure out what is going on, because it's basically telling me that these other locations, these 5 destinations, are invalid or something's going on. So I think that's what's going on. So if anything, Keith, if you like, we could definitely bring you back on for a part 2 on locations.
Okay, that sounds good. Well, will that be next Monday or?
No, next Monday. I know I have a very special co-host about overcoming negativity and objects in our field. So it might be about 2 weeks, about 2-3 weeks. Maybe I'll be in touch though. But I do want to thank you for your time, bro. I really appreciate it. You are a wealth of knowledge. Again, guys, if you haven't already, go check out Keith's book. Go check out all of his YouTube, Instagram, all of his stuff, and show this man some support, because it's a rarity. It's a rarity, Keith, to find individuals like yourself who are so into the paranormal and who are so passionate, not just for the field itself, but the spirits. So personally, I thank you. You are a great example of what this field should be. Much love to you, and you take care, sir.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Anytime, brother. Have a great evening.
You too.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Well, guys, that was Keith Evans. Awesome guy. Seriously, go check out his book. Go check him out. Show him some love and support, because it is a rarity to find someone just like him who actually, let's be honest, gives a shit. I'll be that blunt, because a lot of times in this field, we find people who are, either egotistical, who are just after money, just after the fame and fortune, and they forget about what is really important. And that is not just the locations, but the spirits as well, because we have to maintain that communication with the spirits for the next generation, and also the locations as well. The locations definitely need to be kept up. So, but all right, that's gonna do it for tonight, guys. So sorry about that. I don't know what's going on. I'll have to figure out what is going on with Facebook, but it is acting up. But join us Wednesday night for the Para-Crew podcast. We've got the one and only Brian John Laverty, and hopefully Lex from Lex Paranormal. We'll be talking more about the global ghost hunt. So go join us Wednesday night, 7 p.m. Eastern time. So, there's only one thing left for me to say. Y'all have yourselves a great rest of your night. Have fun, stay safe, and as always, happy hauntings.